Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. I hope you guys had a chance to catch your breath today with everything that's been going on. It has been an insane day in the NFL. The NFL tampering period had opened up for the first time officially, leading to a frenzy, an absolute crazy amount of news, and we are going to spend practically the entire show covering that. Obviously, the big news coming out from yesterday, we keep talking about Russell Wilson. He officially signed with the Steelers. Kirk Cousins officially signs with the Atlanta Falcons. We're going to break down all of that and some more other quarterback moves that have happened all over today. Following that up, we're going to do this position by position. The next biggest position, I believe, we're going to talk about the running backs. We're going to talk about the defensive tackles and the wide receivers and any other miscellaneous news that came through. There's been a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. My notepad is full. I am 3 pages down on that on moves. It is a lot, so we are going to get right into it. But before we do, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation. It should pop up on the screen right there for me, you, and everyone else to see. We'll have a little discussion about what you think. Like I said, this is going to be a very NFL-centric episode. So if you have any thoughts on any of these moves, I'd love to hear them. Leave that tip or donation. Leave a comment. Again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, let's just get this started off with the quarterbacks. The big quarterback news, we're going to start off with the two big names, the two biggest names that were in free agency this offseason, that being Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson. We'll start this in order. Russell Wilson was the first domino to fall. He went last night, announced around midnight, actually, very late night move, after visiting with the Steelers and the Giants, that he is going to sign a 1-year contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very incentive laden. He's getting paid $38 million this year by the Broncos. It's a $1.2 million deal for Russell Wilson to quarterback the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it puts Pittsburgh in a very interesting situation. Not just Pittsburgh, but especially Justin Fields. These two moves really put Justin Fields in an interesting situation, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Russell Wilson, what he brings to Pittsburgh. Obviously, it's an upgrade. It's up to you guys how much of an upgrade you really think that is. I personally think it's a pretty big upgrade. You know, people were talking about starting Mason Rudolph. He's much better than Mason Rudolph. You can take a look at what Mason Rudolph did. Sure, he had a couple nice games. Russell Wilson was a league average quarterback. He was probably like the 16th best quarterback in the league. I don't know. He was very average last season. He didn't turn the ball over. And the Steelers were able to make the playoffs with a combination of Kenny Pickett, who turned the ball over a lot, and Mason Rudolph, who, while he didn't turn the ball over, is Mason Rudolph. He's not that special. It's a good move for both of these teams. It should for both sides. Russell Wilson gets a team that is competitive, which is something he was looking for definitely. He obviously won a ring or two in Seattle, but he hasn't won since his second year in the league. So getting on a competitive team, definitely something he was looking at. The Steelers have an elite defense right there, something reminiscent of those teams that Russell Wilson was really successful with in Seattle. You know, he had Marshawn Lynch in that really, really good running game, along with that elite defense. And the Steelers are built very similarly. You know, they're built in such a way that they're very ground focused. When you look at the way that they're built, you have Najee Harris on the ground. You've got Jalen Warren behind him, who's really come into his own as a great back in this league. And that offensive line is really good. They have lots of weapons. They're talking about trading Deontay Johnson, but they already have, you know, George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth at tight end is going to be big. It's a very similar setup to what he had in Seattle. So I'm very excited to see how this is going to turn out, because it's not the same Russell Wilson that he was 10 years ago, you know, but it is still Russell Wilson. He's a very good quarterback. He's an upgrade for them. And I think the Steelers are locked for the playoffs now. You know, they're always a good team. They always find ways to win. But now they have a quarterback, or they have Russell Wilson. I'm not sure how much he's really going to move the needle, but I do think that he will move the needle for that team. The other big news, I'm sorry, I'm checking my phone because news is continuing to break as we speak. Uh, it's been that kind of day. But the other big quarterback news is Kirk Cousins. 35-year-old Kirk Cousins, coming off a torn Achilles, gets paid to the Falcons. 4 years, 4 years, $90 million guaranteed. I believe it's a $180 million deal. He is, excuse me, he goes and joins an Atlanta team filled to the brim with talent. Drake London at wide receiver, Kyle Pitts at tight end, Bijan Robinson at running back. That offensive line is really underrated. That is going to be the Falcons are going to be a really good team. The Falcons have now, they went through last season with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. This is undoubtedly a major upgrade. Now we have to see how Kirk Cousins is coming off of that ACL. We have to see what he looks like not ACL, Achilles. We have to see what he looks like after the surgery, if he can fully recover, be the person he is. But the Achilles shouldn't affect him that much. Kirk Cousins was never that mobile of a quarterback, and really what the Achilles is going to do is affect his mobility. Him losing some mobility is not going to be that big a deal. It is going to affect. It is going to affect it. He's going to be even more of a statue, but that's going to happen as he gets older. That's why he went to a team with a relatively solid offensive line in the Falcons. But this brings up a really interesting question. What are they going to do with Justin Fields? What are the Bears going to do with Justin Fields now? Because they're two big trade partners in the Falcons, and the Steelers are the people that were, theorized to have the most interest in him or make the most sense, are now off the board. And even more than that, you have teams like the Raiders or the Broncos, two teams that are needing quarterbacks, not in the NFC, kind of fit the bill for what the Bears are trying to trade to, excuse me. But the Raiders just went out and they gave Gardner Minshew a contract. Now, granted, it's Gardner Minshew. He's going to have to fight to win that starting job, but he just took the Colts to the playoffs. Gardner Minshew, a 2-year, $25 million deal, so a big raise for him. They still have Aiden O'Connell, who was serviceable. He wasn't great, but he was serviceable. He won a couple games. Do they really want to spend more assets on a quarterback? Do they really want to go and do that and bring Justin Fields in just so he can compete for a job? I'm not convinced that they're going to do that. The other team, the Broncos, they seem to have their eyes on J.J. McCarthy, and they seem to be on the fast track to get him. Now, the Vikings are still in question. I think the Vikings are a great fit for Justin Fields. I think that's a great spot for him to go. But are the Bears really going to trade Justin Fields to the Vikings? Are the Vikings going to pony up that extra that it's going to cost because they're in division? It's really interesting because the Bears are kind of stuck. They've run out of leverage. They had all this time. They needed to get this deal done before this stuff happened, because now look at this. They've gotten themselves in a Baker Mayfield situation where everyone in the league knew they had to get rid of him. Everyone in the league knew it with the Browns, and now they just can't because no one's willing to pay them. They know that he's going to be gone, and they can pick him up for cheap. It puts them in a really, really tough spot. And I'm not sure what offers they've been getting for Justin Fields, but they cannot keep him. And if they do, it's a mistake. And speaking of Baker Mayfield, we're going to wrap up this quarterback segment real quick. Baker Mayfield got a 3-year, $100 million contract. He's getting $38 million a year. He deserves it. It's not that surprising. We all knew the Bucs were going to pay him. He kind of had to get paid after winning a playoff game last season. The question was how much he was going to get. And putting him in the $30 million range as opposed to 40s and 50s, I think that's a great deal for the Bucs. It's still pretty team friendly to be a quarterback deal. You have a guy in Baker Mayfield who could still potentially be a franchise quarterback for years to come. You have him for 3 years. You bring back Mike Evans. That team is going to be really solid, really good. There's a lot of stuff going on. So in our next break, we are after this first break, we are going to continue to cover the craziness that has been the first day of the tampering period in the NFL. We're probably going to move into running backs or defensive tackles. I don't remember how I put this. There's so much craziness going on. News continues to break. People continue to sign. Keep an eye out for it. We appreciate you tuning in. We will be right back.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows or 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my sound. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with me through that break. If you're just tuning in, it's been a crazy day so far. Our entire show today is dedicated to NFL craziness that has been going on in the last not even 24 hours. It's been about 15 hours of craziness. So much has been going on. We'll do updates. We just finished talking about the big quarterback stories. We talked about Russell Wilson to the Steelers. We talked about Kirk Cousins to the Falcons. We talked about Baker Mayfield staying in Tampa, and we mentioned a little bit about Justin Fields, where he might go, and we talked about Gardner Minshew, who was throwing another wrench into that plan, going to the Raiders. So there's a lot going on with the quarterbacks. If you are curious, go back and check that out. But in this second segment, we are going to talk about the defensive tackles. The defensive tackles have been a really interesting part of this offseason so far. Obviously, Chris Jones, Christian Wilkins, Justin Madubuike, they headline that group that are getting paid handsomely. So we're going to go over some of these moves, where they've gone, and that good stuff. But before we do, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation. Your message will pop up at the bottom of the screen there. Stay up there for just a minute. We'll have a little conversation about what you had to say and your opinions. We really appreciate it. Again, this is a big NFL show. So much is going on. I'd love to hear your thoughts on a lot of this. I know people's favorite teams are adding huge people or losing huge amounts of people. So I'm very curious to hear what you guys think about this first day of the tampering period. This is the first day. It's going to be crazy from here on out. This week is going to be a lot of fun. But like I was saying, we are going to talk about the defensive tackle position. The defensive tackle position, headlined by Chris Jones signing a new league record contract, $95 million guaranteed. I believe the contract is over $150 million. Chris Jones is the centerpiece of that Chiefs defense. He is a huge reason why the Chiefs were able to make the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. Without Chris Jones, I don't think they make that run. Without Chris Jones, I don't think they win that Super Bowl. I think there was that one play in the Super Bowl where the 49ers, in overtime, I believe, where Brock Purdy missed a wide open player for a touchdown. That's all because Chris Jones was there applying pressure. Chris Jones is a changer. He's a game wrecker. He is one of the best defensive players in the league. He gets paid handsomely for it. The Chiefs played one game without him this season. They lost to the Lions. The Lions are not a bad team. But I do think that the Chiefs would have won that game if they had Chris Jones there. So Chris Jones signs a record-breaking contract. And then the rest of the position isn't doing too bad themselves. Justin Madubuike on the Ravens, who really came out of nowhere last season. He led the team in sacks. 13 and a half sacks was the most sacks since like 2015 for the Ravens. He got franchise tagged and then signed a 4-year, $98 million deal. Justin Madubuike is, again, I can keep saying these same things for all of these guys. Game wrecker. He was the main. He's a big body. Plant him in the run game. Tough to get around him. He went on a streak for about 6 or 7 games. I don't remember exactly what it was, where he got a sack in every single game. He was constantly getting pressure up the gut, and he was making it look easy against some of the best in the league. It's big season for these defensive tackles. You know, last cycle, we saw Dexter Lawrence and Daron Payne get paid massive at the position. And now we're seeing it again, this time. Again, Chris Jones, Justin Madubuike, and now Christian Wilkins. His deal was signed today. He goes to the Raiders, leaves Miami after Miami did not franchise tag him. His market was going to be big. He got an $110 million deal. We are breaking the... We're into 9-digit contracts right now. Crazy. He joins a Raiders front that already has all-pro rusher Max Crosby. A Raiders team that is not that struggled a little bit last year in the run game defensively. They didn't have the greatest defense. Their pass game wasn't great either, but adding a guy like Christian Wilkins is going to be huge for that defense. Again, we talk about a big body eating up people in the run game, taking up blockers, even if he doesn't get pressure. You know, you have Max Crosby forcing a double team. You have Christian Wilkins on the inside, who, if you just have one guy, is going to bull him back into the quarterback. That pass rush duo is going to be nasty next year. It's very, very exciting when two guys in their prime at those positions come together. It's awesome to see. The defensive tackle position is booming right now, as it should be. The defensive tackle is the center stone of your defense, you know? Running the ball has kind of been a little phased out. You know, running backs are less and less important, but they still have to stop the run. The run sets up the pass, you know? Sets up play action, sets up these big plays. And having that big body, that elite defender on the inside, stuffing all the run gaps, still being able to get pressure on the quarterback, these defensive tackles nowadays are incredibly athletic. They are big, strong, tall, and some of the most athletic freaks of nature that you'll ever see. It's crazy how fast they are at their size and the amount of power they're able to generate at that position. The defensive tackle position is going off. But it's not just those top guys. You had Justin Jones sign a deal with the Arizona Cardinals, a team that was rumored to be in the mix for Christian Wilkins, a team that really needs pass rush defense bad. So adding a guy like Justin Jones in there is a huge pickup for them. There's a lot of news, a lot of it coming out today. There's stuff still breaking, corners, safeties, all these coming out. We're going to get more into that later in the week when we have time to collect our thoughts, because honestly my head is spinning trying to get all of these players out here. It's more of a reporting show today than anything. Speaking of some of those, we talked a lot about Xavier McKinney. Xavier McKinney signed a 4-year deal with the Green Bay Packers, $12.5 million a year. Big contract for a safety. The Packers did lose Darnell Savage to the Jaguars, who got paid $21 million over 3 years. Adding a guy like Xavier McKinney, I've talked about him a lot recently. I think he's one of the most underrated safeties in the league. People are going to start to see him on the Packers. He's going to be big on that defense. He's going to be out there. Yeah, and that defense has been really, really solid lately. But the the but the but the rest of it, uh, the rest of the market. Oh my God. The rest of the market is continuing to pop off. We just now breaking as we speak. Linebackers, Panthers, former Panthers linebacker Frankie Louvu, just signed a 3-year deal with the Commanders. The Commanders, who have a lot of cap space, have a lot of holes to fix on that defense. Bringing in a guy like Frankie Louvu, 3 years, 36 mil, 12 million AAV. It's gonna be big for that defense. They already have Jamin Davis, who is that linebacker core is pretty solid. Adding Frankie Louvu in there will really help. It's really the corners that they need to get, safeties, secondary, and rebuild that defensive line, but they need help everywhere on defense. And again, more news continues to break. We'll get more into that on the other side, as it's on the offensive side of the ball. Excuse me. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the free agency show. It is going insane right now. Make sure you have your notifications on. In our next segment, we're going to switch back to the offensive side of the ball. We're going to focus on running backs, talk about some breaking news, tight end that just got signed, and some wide receiver news later on. Stick around. We'll be right back.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with me through that break. If you are just tuning in, we are covering a lot of NFL news today. It has been quite the day to follow the NFL. So much is happening. This is the first tampering day. The official league year starts in 2 days on the 13th. But the first day of tampering is today. There has been so much going on. We covered quarterbacks. We covered some defense, including the defensive tackles headlining free agency on the defensive side so far. We're going to go back to the offensive side of the ball here and talk a little bit about some of the major running back moves. The running back market last season was kind of a wasteland, a ghostland, if you could call it. No big moves were made. No big signings were had. That has flipped 180 degrees this season. There have already been 3 major running backs signed. We're going to go over all of that. But before we do, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation. Message will pop up on the bottom of the screen with your name and whatever you had to say there. It's a great way for me, you, and everyone else to have a little conversation. Again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. We appreciate anything that you do decide to give. But like I was saying, we are going to move into the running back position here. The running back position has done a complete 180 from last year, not last week. It's been a complete 180. We have guys, the same guys that were on the market last year, not just moving around, but getting these big deals. Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs. These guys have all gotten massive contracts for different teams. All of them are on the move. And as I say that, more breaking news. Whatever. There is a lot. I'm telling you, it's going crazy right now. It's kind of all over the place. A defensive end AJ Epineza from the Bills is returning on a 2-year deal. Like I was saying, free agent running back. Sorry, my thought process got interrupted there. We're going to start with the big fish. Big fish, Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley signed a 3-year, $37.5 million deal. So we're looking at around $12 million a year, a little more than that. Leaves the Giants, goes to rival Philadelphia Eagles. A Philadelphia Eagles team that really took a step back in the run game after losing Miles Sanders. Their offensive line has changed, but putting Saquon on that team with Jalen Hurts, with the cavalcade of weapons they have on the outside, Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, it's Dallas Goedert, and whoever they have at wide receiver 3, they had Julio Jones last year, which wide receiver 3 Julio Jones still doesn't quite resonate in my brain, but that's a whole nother conversation. He goes to the Eagles, continuing to build on that stacked offense. That offensive line, while they did lose a key piece in Jason Kelce, it should still be very, very good. They already have the replacement there. He's been ready to go for quite some time. And he's been starting at other positions. So the offensive line is going to shift around a little bit. But adding Saquon to that team, Saquon is just, he's just the... Oh, I forgot to update it. My fault. Title's been wrong this whole time. He's just the new... He just brings so much explosiveness to the game. He just brings everything that offense was missing. It adds a whole nother layer. Saquon Barkley, in my opinion, is a top 2 running back in the NFL. I think he's only behind Saquon Barkley. Now you can make the argument only behind Christian McCaffrey. They do a lot of the same stuff, honestly, and him being just behind Christian McCaffrey, that's where I have him on the rankings. He gets paid like it. I think he's now the 3rd highest paid running back, and you don't see running backs get paid that much anymore. Obviously, the whole drama with it last season, but it's good that he gets paid. It sucks that he goes to the Eagles. I got a little bias here. It sucks that he's going to the Eagles, but it is it's not the right. But it is going to very much improve that Eagles offense. An offense that really struggled down the stretch. Adding a weapon as big as Saquon Barkley should do wonders for that team. The other major moves, we kind of touched on it a little bit. Tony Pollard to the Titans. Now, this cements the fact that Derrick Henry will be gone, something that we all basically knew, that Derrick Henry would not be returning. Oh my goodness. That Derrick Henry would not be returning, and this all but confirms it. He joins Tennessee on a multi-year deal. A team that's rebuilding. They've got a lot of stuff wrong with them. Tony Pollard is a solid back. He did get the workload last year, and he didn't quite live up to where he was when he was a backup. I think that was a fluke. I don't know why. I think Tony Pollard can still be a very good back. I'm not sure if Tennessee is the right situation for him. But he gets his opportunity there, and wherever he can get his opportunity, that's where he should go, because he was not going to get it back with the Cowboys. Tony Pollard should be able to turn it around. I don't love the signing, honestly, but I think having him is better than having whoever else they were going to have as the backup right now. He was one of the top running back free agents on the board. It's just not a great fit for any running back in Tennessee. That offensive line is in shambles. The quarterback situation is a mess. I know they brought Will Levis in, and he looked solid down the stretch. I'm still not convinced with him. That defense, it's just not the greatest situation to be going into. Not that it can't be turned around. Tony Pollard is a great back. I think having him on that team is a great addition. But as far as other running backs go, the big surprising move to me, so far for running backs at least, has been Josh Jacobs. He signed to the Packers, 3-year deal. And not only did that happen, the Packers then turned around and cut Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, who when on the field has been one of the best backs in football. Aaron Jones has been very injury prone, but so has Josh Jacobs. And for the Packers, honestly, I think it's a downgrade. I think having Aaron Jones, I know he isn't healthy, but what Aaron Jones brings to that offense, as a part of the passing game, not just the running game. Aaron Jones is one of the best receiving backs in the entire league. Uh, Again, we talked about Saquon Barkley, how he's such a dual threat. Aaron Jones also is that dual threat, and it's hard to find guys like that are so that are so good at both. You have running backs like Josh Jacobs can catch the ball, but he's not running 30 yards downfield and making these catches that Aaron Jones was making. It's it's not the greatest move, I think. I think they really took a step back. Now, Aaron Jones, he deserves to go find a team. I hope he will. He's very, very good. And just as I'm saying, again, more breaking news. Former Patriots linebacker Mack Wilson has agreed to terms with the Arizona Cardinals on a 3-year, $15 million deal. 12.75 guaranteed, as well as Anthony Walker agreeing to terms with the Dolphins on a 1-year deal, linebacker from the Browns. So much is going on. Tight end Will Dissly signed with the Chargers, replacing Gerald Everett, a position that they really needed, and that just goes to show more that the Chargers are looking like they're taking an offensive lineman in the draft instead of Brock Bowers at 5. They still might take Brock Bowers, but I doubt it at this point. They're probably going with a guy like Joe Alt, who seems like their target right now. But as for running backs, Josh Jacobs is a puzzling running back to me, honestly. You take a look at him, he won the rushing crown 2 years ago. He was hurt last year. He was hurt 3 years ago. The year before, 4 years ago, he was good, but not great. And his rookie year, he was great. He's a very inconsistent back. Injury prone, has trouble staying on the field, much like much like Aaron Jones. I just don't quite get it. Breaking news, the Browns are re-signing veteran pass rusher Zadarius Smith to a 2-year contract worth over $23 million. Again, news is breaking at a breakneck pace. It's tough to keep up. I'm doing my best here. Tomorrow will be a much more put-together episode without all this breaking news happening, maybe. Again, tampering period continues into tomorrow, and the first day of the league year opens up 2 days from now. So it might be an insane couple of days here, but we'll have to see. As far as running back goes, some other big news. The Packers, I just don't quite understand that move, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. I just don't quite understand why they did that. Again, I'm a big Aaron Jones fan. I think he's better than Josh Jacobs. And he's been there longer. He knows the system. He fits in the system. He already has chemistry with Jordan Love. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And maybe I'll be proven wrong this season. I know Josh Jacobs is a little bit younger than Aaron Jones, and maybe that has something to do with it. But it's not that big of an age gap that I'm like, you need to upgrade. You need to make a change. Because Aaron Jones was elite when he was on the field this season. He was. He was only on the field for like 3 games. But in those 3 games, he had an incredible year. So as far as that goes, I disagree with the move. That's my biggest disagreement so far of this NFL offseason. That's the move that I have hated the most for a team. But Aaron Jones is released. His market is looking good. The running back market is popping off right now. Devin Singletary signed a 3-year deal with the Giants to replace Saquon Barkley. Joins Matt Breida in that backfield. It's a big step down for the Giants, but they weren't getting Saquon back. He wasn't happy there. So being able to get a back in Devin Singletary, reuniting him with Brian Dable, he could be good in that system. He just rushed for a career-high 800, almost 900 yards in Houston. Started that season off as a backup, so maybe he found another gear. Hopefully he can continue to do what he did last year. More breaking news. Browns defensive tackle Maurice Hurst is re-signing with the Browns in a one-year deal worth up to $3.2 million. But yeah, that Giants backfield takes a step back. The entire Giants team really takes a step back after losing a guy like Saquon. It is tough to come back from that. This season is already kind of a throwaway. They're keeping Daniel Jones for this year, and and he's coming off an ACL injury. He's not going to be there to start the season most likely. So this season is already kind of a wash. Build towards next year. Find the young guys. See if we have a future there. But anyway, in our next segment, we're going to wrap up the show, talk about some wide receiver moves, some wide receiver trades, along with covering more of the continually breaking news of the NFL free agency. Talk about the Browns trading for a receiver. Talk about a receiver asking for a trade. So stick around. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with me through that break. If you are just tuning in, it has been a busy show. Tons of breaking news, tons of breaking signings in the NFL. We've been covering all of that on a super busy day, a day where I still have not been able to catch my breath on this. I'm sure you guys haven't either if you're keeping up with the news. It has been insane. Like I was saying, we are going to continue our NFL coverage, finishing the show off with some trades. As over 80 players have already been signed today. It's been crazy. It's been this is the most wild start to free agency that I can personally remember. It's been a long time. Free agency obviously has been ramping up recently, especially with the increasing coverage over it. But 80 players in just the first 12 hours of it being open is crazy to me. It's probably going to slow down, but we're going to have to take a look and see. There's been some big wide receiver trades or wide receiver demanding trades. We're going to cover that as well as some more breaking news in this segment. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation. It'll show up on the screen for you, me, everyone in the world to see. Leave a message in there. Again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation. We appreciate everything that you guys do give, and we appreciate you guys for watching. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on some of these free agency moves. It's going to be a more organized show tomorrow, but so much is going on right now. We're going to continue to cover the breaking news as well as wide receiver trades. The big trade news, and the one that went through earlier this weekend, that being Jerry Jeudy, former Broncos receiver, being traded to the Browns for a 5th round and a 6th round pick. The Broncos are clearing house right now. They are gearing for full rebuild mode. Sean Payton is keeping the team that he wants, getting rid of the team he does not. A lot of that was getting rid of Jeudy was a lot of cap hit move, because the Broncos need to get under the cap due to them having an $85 million dead cap for Russell Wilson not being on their team. So that really puts some constraints on them. But they are making trades. Getting a 5th and a 6th for him is a little disappointing, especially a guy that you drafted in the 1st round and a guy that has been relatively productive. Now, he hasn't been the greatest wide receiver in the league. He hasn't been, he hasn't even really lived up to Courtland Sutton, but he's been a really solid wide receiver too. And that's what the Browns bring him in for. They bring him next to Amari Cooper, and with those two guys combined, they've traded 2 6ths and a 5th for them. So to get two pretty good wide receivers, they didn't really have to give too much up, and that's great job by the Browns front office and everything that they've been doing on that offense to build around the mess of a quarterback situation that they have after giving Deshaun Watson that huge deal. That's the big news. I think it's a great move for the Browns. The Browns were on my short list for a team that could use a solid wide receiver too. They were on my short list for Calvin Ridley. Them and the Chiefs were my top 2 teams for him. They filled that need. They can still go ahead and get a second receiver. They have Elijah Moore, who they went out and they got from the Jets last season, who was solid, but he's not the greatest. They traded away Donovan Peoples-Jones, and it's been kind of a mess at that wide receiver 3 position for them recently. But they have a very stacked wide receiver core. It's been a very stacked wide receiver core for the Browns. Having Amari Cooper and bringing Jerry Jeudy in, that's going to be a really nice pairing. All right. But the bigger wide receiver trade news that we had, that would be the fact that T. Higgins requested a trade. T. Higgins, who was franchise tagged by the Bengals earlier this offseason, was the first major player to be free. Was the first major news of the offseason in the NFL. Was T. Higgins being franchise tagged. He now requests a trade, and there were already rumors that he would be traded. He wanted to stay in Cincinnati, but they have not even contacted him about getting a long-term deal done. He was disappointed by the way the talks were going, so he was requested a trade. And this puts the Bengals in a very interesting spot, because T. Higgins is the type of receiver that is rumored you can get a 1st-round pick for, of maybe even a 1st and a 2nd rounder. T. Higgins is an emerging star at wide receiver. He's trapped behind a top 5 receiver in the NFL in Jamar Chase. So he has that wide receiver 2 status tagged onto him. But he goes to almost any other team. He is a wide receiver 1. He's arguably a top 10 receiver in the league. I won't go that far. He's definitely a top 20 receiver in the league. T. Higgins is very, very good. And the Bengals losing him, and most likely losing Tyler Boyd, is not the greatest for that offense. An offense that, while they still have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, they are taking some hits. Joe Mixon is only getting older. He kind of took a step back last year. It hasn't been, and without Joe Burrow, that offense was not very good, to say it politely. But wide receiver trades, where are we looking for places for T. Higgins to go? We need to look at teams that would be willing to trade their 1st-round pick for T. Higgins, because that's the reported compensation right now. You have teams like the Panthers, who have been rumored to be in the wide receiver trade talks all season long, trying to get some help for Bryce Young. You have a team like the you have a team like the Excuse me. You have a team like the Chargers, who might be looking to clear some cap. You're looking at some moves in the future coming up soon, having to deal with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, trying to get them below the cap. It's not the best situation for them. They're most likely going to have to cut one of them. So we don't know what's going to happen there. Maybe they'll trade there. The Colts just signed Michael Pittman Jr. to a big deal, 3 years, $37 million. He got franchise tag again. He got that extension done. The Colts have been very good about getting their guys, locking them up. That's been one of their philosophies. And he's coming off a career year. I've talked about this a little bit. He is going to be huge for the development of Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, whose biggest knock against him is accuracy. Having a big target with the hands like Michael Pittman Jr. are going to be massive for him. A guy that you can just kind of throw it up to, jump ball situation. He's going to win 70% of those. Very big, very strong, very fast receiver. Great red zone threat. He's deserving of that big contract that he got. It's been a lot of stuff going on in the NFL. Tomorrow, we are going to have a more put together recap of the show, I would say. We'll have time to take a breath, something we haven't really had time to do today, as over 80 players have been signed on the day. But we'll take a break. Be back tomorrow with our thoughts collected, do a better recap, a bigger, more complete recap of the first day of the NFL free agency being open, talk about some of the bigger moves and all that. Tune in then. We thank you everybody so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We'll be back tomorrow. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.